Hello and welcome to my podcast Justice Tech Log, the podcast where we explore the intersection of technology, justice, and ethics. This podcast is part of the follow-up on the symposium Social Justice and Technological Futures. I'm Sonja, a student of Literary and Cultural Theory at the University of Tübingen. Today I'm talking with Christian Braun, the founder of Blimish, a virtual wellness ecosystem tackling global mental health challenges. His perspective as a builder of technology in the mental health space offers insights into the role of tech in our well-being. Christian was a guest at the symposium Social Justice and Technological Futures, and in this podcast he also shares his impressions of this special gathering. So nice that you made the time. I mean, it's like a few months ago that we met. Actually, it's a lot of time went by. It's nice you made the time to talk to me again.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I really enjoyed my time in Tübingen. It was super impactful for me. So this is a pleasure.
Amazing. Maybe we can just start with you briefly introducing yourself, your journey, your background, your work, and how you're doing with Blimish.
Yeah, it's funny you say briefly, but I feel like I can go on and on about my story. But for starters, I'm 27 years old. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, the birthplace of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And growing up, my mom owned a hair salon and my dad was in pharmaceutical sales. And so I grew up really watching my parents care for people, both through medicine with my father and also through human touch and human connection with my mom. And so from a young age, I built up this sense of empathy and compassion for people. And I knew I wanted to help people, but I didn't really know how. But when I was around 11 years old, my mom noticed I had a gift for writing. She would look at my schoolwork and she would just be super impressed with my writing skills. And secretly, writing became an outlet for me. And I say secretly because, like, growing up, I was really influenced by the culture of hip hop and really trap music, right? And trap music was birthed in Atlanta. And so I found myself seeking to fit in at school and do what was necessary to be seen as cool by my peers. And then at home, I would really find solace in my writing. And so I would live this double life as a teenager. You know, one way I was one way at school and then one way at home. And this trend, really lasted until my 19th birthday when I was wrongly arrested on my college campus for throwing a party. And I had to spend the night in jail. And it was this time where I would make an intentional decision to focus heavily on my future. And I came to the realization that systemically, the place that I was living was not set up for me to win and succeed as a black male, right? Living in a country where 1 in 3 black males can expect to be incarcerated at least once in their lifetime. I knew that the only way that I would be successful is if I made the decision consciously every day to put my time and my energy into developing myself into the best version of myself. And so when I was 19, I became obsessed with this idea of personal development. And I decided that I would be an entrepreneur, right, at 19. And so I was a college student and I took a year off to really find myself and find my entrepreneurial passion. And so that year I started a few companies that failed, but they taught me a lot and they also allowed me to travel and see the world. And so after that year, I went back to school and I changed my major in school to entrepreneurship. And around that time, I found my first mentor who gave me a piece of advice that I still live by today. And he told me, if you struggle to make a difference, you'll never struggle to make $1. And so when he told me that, I knew that I could have a focus on building something positive in the world and still sustain myself financially. And so around that time, I started my podcast, Your Visionary Podcast, where the goal was to help students find their passions and create a vision for their lives. And so I would interview entrepreneurs and just learn about how they got to where they were. And I later used my skill of writing to start a publishing company where I would write and publish books for myself, but also for other entrepreneurs and some of the entrepreneurs that I interviewed on my podcast. And all of this was while I was a college student. And so I graduated in December of 2019, and I became the marketing manager for a technology consulting firm because I always had this interest in technology as a medium for communication through my podcasting and writing. I knew that tech could be used to transform communication and tell stories. And so I wanted to get paid to learn more about technology. And then, 2020 came around, and it was just the whole world was disrupted, if you will. It was the beginning of the pandemic, and then also the George Floyd murder happened, and I became really depressed. I had built up so much. I had this built up pain and emotion that I didn't know what to do with. I didn't know who to talk to. I felt like I couldn't talk to my coworkers because I was the only Black man in my job. And so I signed up for therapy, and I discovered through therapy many techniques on how to identify my emotions, manage my emotions, and really start my own journey of healing, from past traumas. And the information that I learned was so valuable to me as a human, and I realized that this experience is not just valuable for me as a Black American, but every human in the world needs this information on mental health and mental well-being, because every human in the world is dealing with emotions and healing from trauma and learning what it means to evolve into the best version of yourself. But there's this problem because this experience and this practice of therapy is behind a paywall, and everyone can't afford therapy. And so as I was having this experience, it's almost like I had an epiphany, and I asked myself this question, how can we use technology to unlock global access to mental wellness? And so this was the birth of Blimish, and I called on two of my mentors to join me, and for the past 2 years we've been working on this mission of unlocking global access to mental wellness. And then shortly after we started Blimish, I received an opportunity from the French government to expand the work into Europe. And I've been living in Paris now for about the past year and a half, and I've been able to get a firsthand look at global communities and the wellness climate abroad, which brings me to where I am today, being here with you.
Oh, wow. Such a good story. You tackled so many things already. Is there something, you talked about the pandemic and your own mental health issues that followed from it, and maybe also your traumas like facing racism. Why do you think mental health has become such a pressing issue, especially maybe for our younger generation? Is there some factors you have in mind other than the global pandemic that hit us all at the same time?
Right. I feel like the most obvious answer is the pandemic, right? Just because being forced to isolate and not have human connection is a recipe for mental health issues. But yeah, other than that, I think social media and just media overall has really taken a toll on people's mental health, for the past decade or so, right? I think social media specifically has created this feeling of feeling inadequate, feeling like you're not enough, watching other people's lives and just, seeing people's highlight reels. It sometimes makes you feel like you're not good enough or you're not doing enough. And so, social media has been a huge factor, especially for our younger generation. Social media has impacted bullying is in a crazy way. Now it's not just bullying in person, but you have to worry about bullying online now. So that's a huge problem. But then there's just the overall stigma. And luckily, I think today, the stigma is being challenged, right? But our parents' generations, they wouldn't dare to talk about mental health with their friends or the idea of going to therapy. So I think that's another challenge that people face. And then the last one is just the accessibility, right? The access to afford mental health care. Because today for me, I pay around $300 a month for therapy, and I feel fortunate to do so. But there's billions of people who can't afford that, And so it's a huge problem because people don't have an economic opportunity, doesn't mean that they should not be able to access mental health care. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone is in a big trouble to find support in that way. So how is Blimish trying to break these borders? So is it free for everyone, or what is your approach with providing it for everyone in the same manner?
It's funny, right? So because of the symposium, I was really, really impacted, right? Not personally, but also professionally. And so I returned home from Tübingen, and I got with my team, and I challenged us to develop a framework that really spells out our focus on the mission of unlocking global access to mental wellness. And we came up with what we call the SIMPLE framework. And it's an acronym that means, the S is for the social factors that impact mental health, like bullying and lack of resources and growing up in poverty. It's a huge issue. But then there's also inequities in mental health care that disproportionately affect marginalized communities and oppressed communities. And then the M, the idea that mindful communities drive mental wellness is something that really drives us and kind of drives our community development, but also our product development. And the P stands for prevention and early intervention, because we don't want to wait until it's too late. Someone's already diagnosed with a mental health disorder to get in and give them some type of help, right? And then the L stands for leveraging the interconnectedness of the environment, human physical health, and then mental well-being to lead not only to healthier people, but a healthier planet overall. And then lastly, the E just stands for embracing innovation and collaboration as the way forward. And so we're really looking at this framework as almost like a foundation on which we tailor our communication, but also we develop products. And so this is in mind when we think about how we can build for global access.
Now you've mentioned the symposium already. It was about social justice as well, and I think that's written all over your life and your work, probably. If you had to explain social justice in a few words, what does it mean for you?
Well, for me, I would say social justice, I would almost say it means to fight to fix the systems that have historically placed marginalized communities at the bottom of the totem pole. Right, when we look at history, there has been obvious unfair treatment to certain communities, right? All from patriarchal systems all the way to slavery. There have been certain people who have, just been the recipient of unfair and hateful treatment. And so I think social justice means advocating for those people, right, and giving those people a voice.
Absolutely. That might have been the overhead sentence of the 2 days we spent in Tübingen. You already tackled the connection that technology brings and the way everyone can connect online. But what do you think about all the real world connections? I've seen that you with Blimish also meet and have meditation classes. What are your thoughts on the real person coming together and talking?
Yeah, 100%. So you mentioned our in-person meetups, and we try to bridge the gap between virtual and real world, by organizing not only just in-person events, but hybrid events and hybrid workshops, because we don't want to just be a virtual platform. We know that humans need, human to human touch, right? In person is critical for our well-being. And so in Paris, we just had this hypothesis that when you gather people from different backgrounds in the same room to invest in their mental well-being, then they will leave in a better mood than they came. So now that we kind of have proved this, our goal is to expand this event series to major cities all around the world and call on people and invite people, to gather in community and invest in their mental well-being together, right? And so Paris is just the beginning of that, but we plan on going abroad and having that be one of our offerings for our business.
Maybe you can say a little about technology like Blimish in the virtual world. What are the chances of like a virtual world and talking about mental health there?
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I think with technology and really like virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, I think there's an opportunity to shrink the globe, right? Like at Blimish, we have this vision of sparking a movement towards global healing. And so we envision like an opportunity for someone in a market in India to connect with someone in a condo in New York City, right? But for the purpose of learning and sharing with understanding and empathy. And so I love this model that Airbnb has, where you can stay in someone's home on the opposite side of the globe, and you can feel like you can share experiences with someone with a totally different upbringing than you, right? And I love that so much. But instead of like sharing homes, we want to encourage people to share stories and share struggles, and ultimately share love and empathy that will lead to healing emotional wounds. And so with this technology of virtual reality, there's an opportunity to just show up as you are from wherever you are and feel like you are connected with a global community. And so that's like one of the positives of the technology. But the almost sad thing is it's like there's a thin line between healing and abusing, right? And I'll explain that by talking about like the fact that revolutionary technologies, mostly all of them, they were created with like first the purpose of healing and making the world a better place. But then, someone found a way to abuse them and use them for harm. And it goes all the way back to like the 1800s when you think about electricity. And there were so many like positive use cases for electricity, from using it to heal people with electrotherapy, to using it to send messages across airways, to even like the light bulb, right? But then this transformational technology was later used in the late 1800s to execute people with the electric chair, right? And then all hell broke loose. And so like it's similar with the internet, social media, and then we're about to see, the impact of artificial intelligence. And so it's almost like human nature, it's impossible to have the good without the bad. But, what I try to do and what I try to do with Blimish is to focus and emphasize the positive and healing and hope, with the goal that it will overpower the bad. And it makes me think about one of my favorite quotes from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And he said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate, but only love can do that." And so that's like something that we live by and try to preach through our work.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. All these ethical considerations, I think you tackled them already, but how does that really influence your work with Blimish? For example, dealing with sensitive mental health data that you get with the platform or in the platform. How do you try to cope with these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, man, it's so tough, right? Like, especially now, I mean, honestly, ethical considerations are at the top of our priority list when it comes to both developing and deploying technology. And so we're working on a project now, an AI project, where we're building a collective of AI mental health coaches. And it's like we're already testing and we're ready to deploy them to the world, but we're not going to release them until we can ensure that our users' data is safe, but also that our algorithms will not deliver harmful or false information. Because we're already seeing like horror stories of people receiving dangerous responses from AI systems, and some of them are leading to like suicide. And so that's not what we want at all. And it's interesting because in like this startup world and in technology, they teach you that speed is your best friend. But we're changing that, and we're saying like, no, safety is our best friend. And so we're speaking with different lawyers and ethicists, but just also exploring possibilities to use technologies such as blockchain as an additional way to secure our users' data, because with blockchain technology, our users will be the owners and the controllers of their own data, right? And so we see that as a possible opportunity. But we're super serious and focused on safety and privacy and making sure that we're as transparent as possible when it comes to all of this.
Absolutely, that's a good way to approach these things, and I also feel like that collaboration is one of the main points, like bringing together people who know stuff and trying to capture all this knowledge. Could you share some insights about like all the professionals you work with and what interdisciplinary collaboration mean for you? Maybe also thinking about the symposium where a lot of people from different fields came together.
Yeah, no, I love that so much, and like I know that as a 27-year-old person, there's only so much that I can even know, right? And so since I moved to Paris, I've been living by this quote that you're always one connection away from your dream, right? You're always one connection away from your dream, and I believe that is true for every person, right? And collaboration and cooperation is so important when it comes to developing projects and also sparking movements. And I think one of the things that most impacted me about the symposium is that I felt like it was a spark of a movement around social justice and technology. And when you think about all of the great movements, social movements in the past, it's like they're only possible if a collective of people buy in to a larger vision. And so it's so important just to me personally and professionally. And like with our team at Blimish, we work with so many great people. I'll name a few of them. Just like two of my partners. One is Tony Gaskins, who's a well-known life and relationship coach with over 3 million followers online. And then Christopher Lafayette, the one who invited me to the symposium, who's just an incredible human being and a really, really smart technologist and just an overall great leader. And then we have a team of clinical advisors who help us on the clinical side and the psychology side. People such as Dr. Robin Rosenberg, who's based in New York City, and she has over 25 years of experience in psychology. And so she brings a wealth of knowledge to our team. And then we have a guy named Craig DeLarge who is in London right now, and he's a digital mental health expert. And so he has done tons of research for us on mental health and emerging technologies. And then we have some psychologists here in Paris who also, work with us and consult for us. And at the symposium, I was able to make some good connections, like Kaliwe from Mozilla Foundation, who's based in Zimbabwe. She's been able to give me some great insight on how Blimish can be impacted by the Mozilla Foundation and some possible opportunities there. And then I even met a fellow Atlanta native at the symposium, Professor Jaquita Thomas. And so I've been connecting with her, talking about, engineering and computing and trying to get in touch with her students. So collaboration is super important for me and for Blimish. And we know there's no shortage of people to connect with. We just have to make sure we're going into the right rooms and answering the call for initiatives that align with our values, such as the symposium.
You mentioned a lot of people that also stuck with me for a long time. What is your impression? You do have an academic background yourself. You studied in the US. What are your impressions of like this academic discussions about technology and the academic background?
Yeah, it was really interesting, right? Like, it was the first time for me that I was ever in a room like that where it was like a collection of stakeholders, right? Because entrepreneurs, researchers, those in academia, like we all play a role in the way the world works, like technology and business. And so I was really impressed just to learn about some of the studies that were being conducted already. Like, I was really, really impacted by the group from UNC. I didn't even know that they had like a center there where they focus on specifically like ethical considerations for technology and mental health. And so just learning about what universities are already doing, to kind of fight for social justice and in a humanity first approach to technology, it opened my eyes, because I haven't been involved in academia since I graduated. I've been in this tech world, but the symposium was like a reminder for me that academia is very important when it comes to developing and deploying technology, because we have to make sure that what we're delivering to the world is statistically proven to have a positive impact. And if there are risks involved, we need to know the research and the studies behind that as well.
We also had some activists with us on that day, and you were having experience of racism, and you talked about all these great people who fought for social justice when it comes to race. What is your impression on that activist, really practical work?
Yeah, I love it. I left the symposium with a question of how can I be an activist for mental wellness, right? That was one of my main concerns, and I started doing research on it too, and learning what that meant. And that's one of the reasons why we came up with the simple framework for mental wellness. But I think activism is so important, and just having examples of leaders who are not afraid of voicing their opinion, no matter how trivial it may be or how controversial it may be. It's we as people just need to see those examples, right? Because those examples of people doing it is what can inspire us, and it's this domino effect of inspiration is what leads to social change. And so just gathering, those activists and giving them a stage and a platform is powerful.
Can't see it, but I'm nodding and smiling like crazy. One question that is not really related to all the things we talked about yet, but I mean, you're also a builder of technology with Blimish, and everything is so quick and so fast. How do you personally keep pace with all the new advancements in technology, and how do you educate yourself, or are you also in collaboration with people?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, so I try to just connect with people who are also builders in emerging technologies. So I'm a part of many online communities, and Gatherverse being one of them. And I'm just so grateful for it, because I'm able to see articles and reports about leading technology most of the time as soon as it's published. And I'm also able to see other people's reactions and how other technologists are thinking about these new things. And so it's really fun for me. It's fun for me to study new technologies and just be a part of communities who are developing the technology. So it's kind of almost being a first mover in this world of technology. And so it's fun, but it's also sometimes it's a lot to grasp, because it seems like things are always changing, right? I remember, last year, virtual reality and the metaverse was the biggest topic of technology, and now it's artificial intelligence, and who knows what it'll be a year from now, right? But sometimes it could be a little intimidating, but I think just as a leader in technology, you really have to stand on your square and be a bold leader, and just show up to make sure you're in the right spaces and in the right rooms, and make sure that you're not being too locked in on your work, but that you still have your hand in what's going on, or just have information and knowledge on what's going on in the world. Because one of our roles as leaders in technology is to be a bridge for information, because not everybody can understand what AI is or what VR, AR, XR is. And so it's up to us to really be able to articulate in a simple way what these technologies are and the impact that they are going to have on our societies and on our communities.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like sometimes it's hard to keep up, but that's also fun, maybe sometimes. And it's necessary to stay updated. When you think about the future, what are your wishes? What do you wish for? Maybe also in thinking about mental health. What do you see yourself? Where do you see yourself with Blimish in like 5 years or so?
Yeah, 100%. I want mental health to just be cool, right? I want it to be a cool thing to for young people and all people to invest in their mental well-being, to talk about healing, um, to talk about emotional well-being, talk about physical well-being. Like I want that to be a cool topic to have globally, and I hope at Blimish that we're able to pioneer a movement for this, like for just global healing by unlocking access to mental wellness. So let's say 5 years from now it'll be what 2028. What I really hope for Blimish and one of the strategies that we're taking is that I hope that we're able to collaborate and cooperate with foreign governments to establish some healthy frameworks for mental health. Because last week I was at UNESCO, the UNESCO headquarters here in Paris, and I was meeting with all these ministers and government leaders, and the topic of the conference that I was at was on AI and education. It was all these ideas being thrown out, but it made me realize that the governments have such a powerful role in deploying technology and deploying rules and regulations, to communities. And so I think if there's a way that Blimish can partner with foreign governments to just help them come up with healthy models for mental health care, I think that could be really impactful. So I'll say like 5 years from now, I hope that we're able to partner with just one foreign government and be a pioneer for delivering a new, healthy, accessible ideology and practice of mental health care for a global community. So just one in 5 years. That would be cool.
Yeah, one at a time.
One at a time.
Interesting that you met with UNESCO. Did they reach out to you, or is that something that's going on for a long time now?
Yeah, so no, they did not reach out to me, but just through one of my advisors here in Paris who does some work with UNESCO, he invited me to the conference, and that was my first time even doing anything with UNESCO, but it won't be the last, just because it was such a cool moment, and I was able to build relationships with people from UNESCO there. And so I'll definitely be going back, and I hope to do a lot more work with them. And UNESCO was at the symposium. I sat next to the guy from UNESCO without even knowing who he was. I think he's with UNESCO in the Germany headquarters. But yeah, I just remembered that just now. UNESCO was at the symposium as well.
Yeah, exactly. That is so important as well. Like with governments considering also like these ethical things about technology, and also law might be like a big part of it. What is allowed to happen, what isn't. And I mean, UNESCO's also, they do a lot of educational work. What are your thoughts on education about technology and education about mental health?
Yeah, education is a superpower which we can use to change the world. I think that's Nelson Mandela said that, but yeah, I mean, I think I think education is a superpower which we can use to change the world. So I mean that alone lets you know what I think about education. But yeah, I think when it comes to mental health, psychoeducation is super important, and it's one of the like negative things about social media is that it leads to some people self-diagnosing themselves based on the content that they see on social media, which is very dangerous. And so I think education on mental health can save a lot of lives. If there was a easier, more credible way to get mental health information and to be knowledgeable about mental health, I think it could save a lot of lives, but again, that's one of the topics that's just not cool, really. And so I think there needs to be a change in that too, promoting psychoeducation, and letting that be a part of the education on technology, because I think technology will always have a direct link with mental health. And so I believe whenever we introduce new technology into the world, we also need to introduce maybe not even new mental health frameworks or education, but just like reminders. So almost like putting these new technology in parameters that are gated by mental health knowledge to make sure that people are aware of the implications when it comes to what technology can do to your mental health and the effect that it has, but also just remind people that like technology is used as a tool that's supposed to help us in our lives, but not like control and take over our lives, which is, I think, is happening. But the more that we can like vocalize the importance of taking a break from technology and just going out in nature and doing physical activities, meeting with people physically, I think the more we can advocate for that, like the safer that we can implement technology into our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Not only I was thinking about that, it not only saves lives, but also like society needs to be healthy in every way to grow and to bring out like the good in the world, I'd say. Thank you so much, Christian. If there's anything else you wanna say or a website that people can support you in your work, feel free to say a few words about this.
Yeah, thank you so much. I mean, our website is blimish.com. And on there we have some of our work and some of the research we're working on, the events that we're doing, products that we're building is all on there. And then my personal website, iamchristianbrown.com, is where I have like my podcast and my books. And I'm working on a poetry book that'll be released later this fall, and I'm really stepping back into my outlet as a writer by focusing on writing poetry books about self-discovery and healing. So I'm looking forward to releasing that and talking more about that from like a personal brand perspective. So yeah, I would say that, and thank you again for having me and giving me the opportunity to share my story and the story of Blimish.
Thank you so much for listening to my podcast, Justice Tech Log, where we explore the intersections of technology, justice, and ethics. This podcast is part of the follow-up on the symposium Social Justice and Technological Futures. The symposium took place in May 2023 at the University of Tübingen and was organized by the International Center for Ethics in the Sciences and Humanities, the RHET AI Center, and the Collaborative Research Center 923 Threatened Orders of the University of Tübingen, in cooperation with the WeNet project. If you want to find out more about the symposium, check out their website, uni-tübingen.de/socialjusttechfuture. In the next episode, we'll hear the full conversation with Farishta Farouk, the CEO of Code to Inspire, the very first coding school for women in Afghanistan, where she shares her story, her journey with Code to Inspire, and her perspective on social justice and technological futures.